Today, we're charting a course through an incredible story, the story of the architects of globalization. These are the masterminds behind a 150-year empire that quietly, almost invisibly, reshaped our entire world. This is the story of the Greek shipping empire. But first, just think about this for a second. Look around you right now. Your phone, the coffee in your mug, maybe the shirt on your back. How did all that stuff get to you? The answer? Well, it's incredibly simple, but it's also profoundly important. That's right. Almost everything comes by sea. The modern world literally runs on this vast, invisible highway of ocean trade. It's like the circulatory system for the entire global economy. And the story of that highway is really the story of a handful of Greek visionaries. Over a century and a half, they took what was a regional trade and turned it into a globe-spanning empire. So you have to ask, if shipping is so critical, why does nobody ever talk about it? How can an industry this massive be practically invisible? Well, there are a few reasons. For one, we always tend to focus on making things, manufacturing, not the service of actually moving them around. And the product itself is totally intangible. You can't exactly hold transportation in your hand. Plus, it's the ultimate international business. It all happens out on the high seas, beyond any one country's borders. And honestly, it's always had a reputation for being a very private, kind of secretive business. Our story really gets going back in the 19th century, with three brothers who basically laid the foundation for all of it, the Vaglianos. And they didn't build their empire from some grand capital city. No, they started with something way more unique. You see, Greek shipping wasn't born in a country. Not in the way we think of it. It was born in what historians call a dispersed maritime city. It was this incredible web of islands, like Cephalonia, where the Vaglianos were from, that all acted like one single economic hub, all bound together by family, by community, and of course, by the sea. And out of this island network, they created this incredibly powerful new business model. It was built on the old world pillars of family and deep personal trust. But they supercharged it with one brilliant modern innovation, the London office. So here's how the whole thing worked. The Vaglianos would get their hands on cheap grain from Russia's Black Sea ports, which were just opening up. They'd manage all the complicated trade logistics out of Constantinople. But here's the secret sauce. They plugged their operation directly into the world's financial capital, London, to get the money to make it all happen. It was a revolutionary idea, linking this local supply chain to global finance. Now, the Vagliano model was perfect for the age of sail, but there was a massive technological rupture coming, something that was about to change the rules of the game forever. And the pace of this change was just breathtaking. In the 1850s, the world still ran on wind and sail, but by the 1880s, the Vaglianos proved they were sharp. They were already early investors in the new, unproven steamship technology. But it was Aristotle Onassis who, decades later in the 1950s, saw the next great leap. And he basically invented the era of the supertanker. And to really get your head around how radical this was, just look at the numbers. A typical sailing ship in the 19th century, the kind the Vaglianos started with, it carried maybe 200 tons. An Onassis supertanker, a very large crude carrier, carried over 200,000 tons. That's not an improvement, it's a completely different reality. It was a phenomenon the industry started calling gigantism. Which brings us to the ultimate disruptor, Aristotle Onassis. This guy wasn't just adopting new tech. He was building an entirely new kind of empire, one that didn't belong to any country at all, a stateless empire. Onassis was a total outsider. He started out as a tobacco merchant, not some salty sea captain. But that fresh perspective, that's what let him see what the old guard couldn't. Oil was the future. A tanker revolution was coming. And his strategy was brilliant. Combine the biggest ships the world had ever seen with a totally radical new way of structuring a business. And this was his most powerful tool, the flag of convenience. Now, Onassis didn't invent it, but oh boy did he perfect it. The idea is simple but world-changing. It breaks the link between who owns a ship and what country's flag it flies. So a ship could be owned by a Greek but be registered in, say, Panama or Liberia. This meant his empire could be truly global, unbelievably flexible, and, crucially, free from the taxes and regulations of any single nation. And this is where it gets really clever. You could have a Greek owner, like Onassis, with a ship registered in Liberia, managed from a fancy office in Monte Carlo, carrying oil from Saudi Arabia to the United States. The business literally existed everywhere and nowhere at the same time. So, to pull off this new global model, how many companies do you think he created? 1? 10? Nope. Onassis built this ridiculously complex web of 183 separate offshore companies in places like Panama and Liberia. This whole structure made his empire incredibly powerful, nimble, and, for all legal purposes, practically invisible. Okay, so let's pull all this together. What we're really looking at are two very different but connected models, built by two generations of innovators that ended up creating the blueprint for our entire global economy. First, you have the Vagliano model. It was deeply rooted in a physical place, the islands. Its currency was personal trust, a handshake deal. It operated through one strong central hub in London, and its identity was totally tied to a specific community. And then, you have the Onassis model, a completely different beast. It was global and stateless. Its network wasn't built on trust, but on complex corporate and legal structures. It was radically decentralized across hundreds of companies, creating an identity that was designed to be legally invisible and hyper-flexible. So you see, from those tight-knit island networks of the 19th century to the sprawling, invisible corporations of the 20th, these innovators, step by step, wrote the blueprint for the world we all depend on today. The world they built is more connected than ever before in human history, there's no doubt about it. But it leaves us with one massive, critical question. As the architects of global trade become more and more invisible, who really holds the power on the high seas today?